Put it in full slide show.
Yeah, yes. Good morning, everyone. I am presenting the article named Lupus Anticoagulant and Abnormal Coagulation Test in Patients with COVID-19. The basis of this research article is the prolonged APTT in patients who were affected with the coronavirus. The article was taken from the journal New England Journal of Medicine, which was published. The article was published on 5th May 2020. These are the list of authors. There are 11 of them who did this research work. Introduction. Patients with corona disease, COVID-19, have a profound hypercoagulable state and a complicating venous thrombotic events. Abnormalities in coagulation screening measures, including a prolonged APTT, have been reported in patients with COVID-19. These findings are seen as a reason to avoid the use of anticoagulants at both therapeutic and prophylactic doses in such patients. So, prolonged APTT may indicate a clotting factor deficiency or the presence of an inhibitor of coagulation that is either specific, that is antibody to factor 8, or non-specific, that is lupus anticoagulant. Lupus anticoagulant is a immunoglobulin that binds to phospholipids. It is a prothrombotic antibody which causes an increase in inappropriate blood clotting. And so lupus anticoagulant can affect in vitro test of blood coagulation, but typically is not associated with bleeding. So as a part of antiphospholipid syndrome, lupus anticoagulant is associated with a thrombotic risk. So here in this study, they investigated the cause of prolonged APTT in patients with COVID-19. How the case selection was done in the study. So the samples were obtained from patients admitted to Royal London Hospital, Barts Health NHS Trust, with a presumed or proven COVID-19 related presentation and investigated as a part of standard of care and routine practice. So from this patient's plasma was separated from consecutive citrated blood samples received in laboratory on 2nd and 7th of April 2020. Plasma was double spun according to national guidelines and frozen at 80 degrees Celsius for 24 hours before being rapidly thawed prior to analysis. The exclusion samples from patients who did not have a swab taken or who had a negative result for COVID-19 were excluded. I'll be explaining this in my methodology. So methodology starts.
You repeat us again. You repeat us again. What were their objective?
Sorry, sir.
What were their objective? What were their objective? You repeat that. You simplify that again to all the audience.
The objective is to find the cause of prolonged APTT in patients with COVID-19, sir. And second objective was to prove that anticoagulants can be used in patients with COVID-19.
Okay, everybody got that?
Yes, sir.
Once more you tell. Once more you tell.
Yeah.
People should know what article, why you are reading, why you chose.
Yeah. The first objective was to find why there was a prolongation in APTT. Was it due to COVID-19 only? The cause for a prolonged APTT. And second objective is whether anticoagulants can be used in COVID-19 patients.
Okay, fine. So we saw how they selected the patient. Now we'll see methodology.
Yeah. Methodology: blood specimens obtained from 216 patients who were positive for SARS-CoV-2 were received for coagulation screening. The screening was done within 48 hours. So 44, that is 20%, were found to have prolonged APTT. So specimens from 9 patients were excluded. I'll explain it in my next slide why it was excluded. And those from 35 patients were investigated further. Moving on in detail, in the 224-hour period, a total of 216 samples were received for coagulation screening from COVID-19 positive patients. Out of this, 44 samples were found to have prolonged APTT. In that 44 samples, 9 samples were excluded, as 7 of the samples from the patients who were already on anticoagulant therapy, and 2 samples were from duplicate patients. Duplicate patients here means one patient was associated with one or more records. So the same patient was added here. So duplicate patients. Am I clear?
Yeah.
And
So let us go back and look at the patient selection again.
yes,
What
sir.
kind of patient they have selected?
They have selected, wait, sir, I will be explaining it, sir, age range and all here. Can I complete this, sir? Slide?
Okay, fine, go ahead.
Yeah. So the remaining 35 samples from individual patients underwent further laboratory evaluation. And at the time of sampling, 21 patients were tested while in critical care. 10 were from inpatients or emergency departments who were admitted for more than 24 hours. And 4 patients were from emergency department who were discharged within 24 hours. The median age was 57 years. The inclusion criteria included patients from 19 years to 83 years, out of which 24 were male patients. And on 13th April 2020, of 35 patients, 8 had died, 8 had been discharged, and 19 remained in the hospital, in which 15 were in critical care units. One patient had a confirmed pulmonary embolism on CT pulmonary angiogram, and another patient with end-stage renal failure had rapid deterioration in respiratory and cardiovascular function and died before a suspected pulmonary embolism could be confirmed, and no postmortem was performed for the patient. So you're asking something, sir?
Yeah. So now now as see, this is not a formal journal presentation as I had told. This, in the beginning, the few presentation I asked you people to learn how to analyze the article. Okay, once you get apt onto it, like how to analyze this. If you see any article, how to analyze that, then you can go like you can advance your presentation. So we are in the learning process. That's what I mean. Let us learn how to look at the literature when you see any article, how in what different direction and what different interpretation you can make from an article. Okay. For example, now we are looking at the article. So as she told, they are trying to look two things here. The first objective is to see how many, like what is the cause of prolonged
Prolonged
APTT, and the second cause is,
whether
second objective
anticoagulants
is whether anticoagulant can be used or not. Okay, and we saw the selection criteria now, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria. So first thing that should come in our mind is, okay, what are the things that can affect this APTT, this one, the coagulation profile of a patient. First thing that should come in your mind. Can you list down the audience? Can you list down the things, the factors that can affect coagulation factors, coagulation profile of patient?
drugs and diseases.
Just list down.
Liver disease.
Liver disease. Okay, see here the first thing. Okay, let us know, keep noting, then we'll come back to each one. Liver disease. Okay, fine. Next.
Bleeding disorders.
We'll get back. Okay, liver disease then. Bleeding disorder. What kind of bleeding disorder? Let us be specific, because we are talking about now inclusion exclusion.
Hemophilia.
ITP.
Hemophilia.
ITP.
Okay. Hemophilia, ITP. Okay.
Deficiency of factors 8 and 9.
If the patient is already on
Antihistamines, dabigatran, endoxifen.
Yeah, very important. Anticoagulant drugs, anticoagulant and antiplatelet drug, right?
Yes.
yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, then. Then what else?
Deficiency of clotting factors.
Yes. Okay. That comes under again bleeding disorder, as we said collectively. Sepsis. What do you say about sepsis?
Sir?
Yes, sir.
What do you say about sepsis? Most of the sepsis, the patient will have coagulopathy. Not in all, but some, in like majority of the patient. Then what else?
Vitamin K deficiency, sir.
Okay, fine. But that is less likely, but still we'll note that. Next.
I think we have listed most of the reasons.
Okay, so let us try to make our point. We listed whatever we can. Now we have to look at the inclusion and exclusion criteria of this literature, okay? Whether they have accounted of this factor, whatever we listed, whether they have accounted liver disease patient, whether they have accounted bleeding disorder, whether they have accounted drugs like antiplatelet or anticoagulant drugs, whether they have accounted all these things. Like that we have to see, okay? If not, then that means there is something not appropriate. Am I right? That means
Yes,
there is
sir.
something fishy going. So
Yes, sir.
now let us ask the question: have they addressed all these things? You can, but now we'll try to relate these factors with his inclusion and exclusion criteria. He haven't talked anything about. But before criticizing, before commenting on the article, we also have to keep in mind. Like that's why we tell you people, okay, what was the qualification of the author, where the study was done. You didn't tell that, huh? No.
Yeah, the study was conducted in Royal London Hospital, sir, and the samples were from United States.
Author.
Author, I didn't check on author.
All those things you have to see, no? Whether these are the author, huh? What they do,
Yeah, these are the
who are they?
authors, sir. I didn't check about them, sir. They are. I didn't check
Their
on the
affiliation
authors.
should be there, no? Hmm?
Yeah, I didn't.
So that these are important to know. Okay, then only we can we'll be more confident or less confident to comment on. Now we have to see their inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, whether they have accounted for this or not. Okay, they are telling the patient up to 83 years, I think, no?
Yeah,
So
yes, sir.
up to
19.
83 years, 83 years. So how many of them had this thing? How many of them had the comorbidities that can affect coagulation profile?
Sir, in the
So that
article,
one.
they had not mentioned separately inclusion and exclusion.
Hmm.
And
Here
I
you
think,
mentioned.
yeah, this is like not separately inclusion and exclusion they have mentioned. And why certain patients were excluded is only mentioned. And the age, and like mainly the inclusion criteria, what I found is the age, that is 19 to 86. And second thing is patient with prolonged APTT who were COVID-19 positive.
Okay, fine, but don't you agree with me that these are the facts, some of the factors that you need to consider when you include a patient in your study?
Yes, sir.
Now at this time, at this stage, now you know something about research because we are doing it. Okay, so as your academic project also, so don't you think these are the factors that you should consider logically, conceptually? I'm not asking. I'm not telling you to use your high, like very high fundamental things, but just like. It's a kind of logic, isn't it? If you are enrolling the patient to look at the anticoagulation, you should look whether the patient is on anticoagulant drug or not. Hmm? Whether the patient have any kind of comorbidity that can prolong the coagulation profile or not. All those things have to be taken care, right?
Yes.
So like that you have to see, you have to think, okay. And then at the latter part, if you have seen that Word document where it is clearly one section is given for you people to put your comment. This kind of comment you can put there, okay. So this would have been better if they would have taken consideration of this thing. We don't know how many patients in that might have liver disease. We don't know how many patients might be on antiplatelet or anticoagulation drug. These things are not mentioned in the article. If they could have mentioned it, and it would have been better. Okay, we don't know how many patients had vitamin K deficiency. We don't know how many patients were sepsis, and out of that sepsis, how many patients had deranged coagulation profile. So all these things like this, you have to criticize. You have to give the comment. Okay, so that will show the audience how nicely you have gone through the article and how you have thought through it. Okay, are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the control group were selected from the historical records that were examined to identify a similar number of samples to the study group with a prolonged APTT being investigated for lupus anticoagulant. That was in a time period before the first reported case of COVID-19 in UK. Okay, this was the control group. Okay. In November and December 2019, 540 lupus anticoagulant assays were performed in their laboratory. And out of this, 43 had a APTT that was greater or equal to 30 seconds. The reference range is 21 to 29 seconds. And 9 of these samples were from patients who were acutely unwell including 3 on critical care wards. This was their
You
control.
also clarify. You also clarify to the audience why this lupus anticoagulant is coming time and again.
Sir?
Why this lupus anticoagulant is coming time and again? Clarify to the audience.
Yeah, lupus anticoagulant is a prothrombotic antibody that causes increase it increases the blood clotting, inappropriate blood clotting, I should say. It
So
is
that decreases FTP. Okay.
yeah, yes, sir.
So that all should know. Okay, and why LA is coming time and again.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, moving on. The coagulation assays 3 were performed. One is this one, then LA assay and anti-factor 10A assay. This in detail, I will share it in group. Here I'll discuss what they have done here. Here, all assays were performed on Sysmex CS series analyzers. These are hematological analyzers which are approved by FDA and ISO for certified clinical lab users. Okay. So this is based on standard protocols. So here the APTT and factor assays were performed using Simon's actin FS and factor deficient plasma and standard plasma. These are the reagents used here, which are sensitive to specific clotting factor deficiencies. So prolonged APTT was defined as greater than or equal to 30 seconds. Factor assays were performed using single point assay, that is 1 in 20 dilution buffer for factor 7, 1 in 10 for factor 10, 11, and 12. That was for coagulation assay. Second one assay carried was LA assay. Here they performed it using dilute Russell's Viper Venum time. This is the standard screening assay that is done for lupus anticoagulant. Diagnosta Stago PTT LA reagent. So Siemens LA2 and actin FS reagents were used as confirmatory reagents for DR, VVT, and APTT respectively. Here, DR, VVT positive does not mean that the patient has lupus, nor it means that the blood is prevented from clotting. Okay. And were performed by adding equal volumes of technoclone and platelet per plasma. A platelet poor plasma is prepared from our normal plasma only. Here the platelet content of the plasma. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. So platelet poor plasma, it is prepared from the normal plasma only. Here, the platelet content of the plasma is reduced to a level where it does not influence the lupus test by repeated centrifugation. Okay. And now Simon's LA1 and LA2 contain a heparin neutralizing agent, which means that heparin levels up to 1 international unit per ml have no effect on the results, and no other reagents used contain a heparin neutralizer. And International Society on Thrombosis and Hemostasis criteria were used to determine LA positivity. Yeah. And now moving on to next anti-factor 10 assay. Heparin anti-factor 10 assay were performed using hyphen biofen LRT reagents. And now I'll show you the results after doing this laboratory test. These are the first one is the mean age of patient, that is 56.5, out of which 24 were males. And thrombus status, one patient was confirmed with venous thrombosis.
You cannot see your result, Gayatri. You cannot see your results. You have to do new share.
Okay, sir. Yeah, I'll do. It's in now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the mean age was 56.6, out of which 24 were male patients. In the thrombus status, venous thrombosis was found in one patient. In one patient, it was suspected. And the mean values of coagulation, APTT, the mean coagulation time was 35.5 seconds. And similarly, the other factors. And coming to the result, lupus anticoagulant test results, it was out of 34 patients, for 31 patients, it was found to be positive. That is, that gives a 91% positivity. And DRVVT, 7 patients were found to be positive, and LA sensitive APTT 6, and both tests were positive in 18 patients. And a negative result had come only for 3 patients out of 34. And the last column, what you find is the reference range, that is for the APTT reference range. Now moving on, the statistical analysis. A chi-square test was performed to compare the frequency of lupus anticoagulants between COVID positive and the historic cohorts with a R value 3.6. P-value of less than 0.05 is considered statistically significant. And 95% confidence intervals were calculated using GraphPad Prism. I didn't check what it is. Then results were no patients were found to have.
Go back. Frequency of LA anticoagulant between the COVID positive and the historic cohort. Okay. Fine.
Moving on to the result, no patients were found to have deficiency in factor 8 or factor 11. So this factor 8 and 11 are the circulating anticoagulants, so inhibitors of coagulation. And in 5 patients, marginal reduction in factor 11 were found that were unlikely to be of clinical significance. And the factor 12 level was 50 international units per deciliter or lower in 16 patients. Lupus anticoagulant assays were performed in 34 patients, and out of that 31 were positive, like we saw in the table. The presence of lupus anticoagulant was indicated by 2 assays, DRVVT and lupus anticoagulant sensitive APTT in 18 of 34 patients, and in DRVVT alone 21%, and by lupus anticoagulant sensitive APTT in 6 patients 18%. This is the same what is discussed in the table. All lupus anticoagulant positive specimens had a prolonged APTT with a 50:50 mix, that is in a sample made of 50% patient plasma and 50% normal plasma. And from the study, it was concluded that they suggest that a prolonged APTT should not be a barrier to use of anticoagulation therapies in the prevention and treatment of venous thrombosis in patients with COVID-19. And in their opinion, clinicians should not withhold use of anticoagulants for thrombosis while awaiting further investigation of a prolonged APTT, nor should they withhold thrombotic therapy in the face of a high-risk pulmonary embolism on the basis of a prolonged APTT. That finishes.
Okay. So see, at the in journal club, in most of the literature, what we usually do is we look at the objective very often, and then we look at the conclusion very often, and then we just don't pay much attention to the inclusion exclusion criteria, the result, the discussion, so all those things, isn't it? That is how we look at the have a glance to the literature, isn't it? We look at the objective, title, objective, and then conclusion, and we say, okay, this was the article published in NEJM or JAMA, and this is what they concluded, so we'll follow that blindly. Most of the time we do, okay, isn't it? Do you agree with me? Most of the time we do know the article published in JAMA concluded so and so, and we go with the same fact, and we don't even give the minute attention to the other factors like patient sampling, what the inclusion exclusion criteria, what methodology they followed, and what kind of discussion they are making. I think it's a kind of limitation that we don't do that. When we look at the this is from good journal, we simply pick it and then we take that conclusion and we try to disseminate that conclusion highly qualified also. You should not feel feel underconfident in commenting them, in criticizing them, in telling that this is wrong, this could have been done in a better way. It's not like okay, they have published in NGM, that means that they are great, okay, that everything could be correct. You won't believe me. I can show you many articles published in this pandemic in NEJM doesn't have so many flaws, okay, so many flaws, so many basic flaws. It's not like okay, it's not like the major one that is very difficult to take out. Actually, when I will show you those flaws in those from those articles, you will laugh actually, and you will wonder, okay, NEJM, which is a like this kind of scale with this kind of standard emission, and that is publishing this kind of paper, that happened actually in this pandemic. So why I'm telling this is to make you understand you should not feel that okay, if it is in NGM or JAMA, then it's always like the best. Okay, there can be flaws. You need to be vigilant to pick that out. You also should keep in mind when you are presenting journal club, there is a discussion part in every article which is very difficult to put in the PPT, but when you are presenting journal club, you have to tell those things orally, whatever is relevant. Okay, it's very difficult to put in the PPT, put in the screen, but you should have understood that, and you should be explaining, because discussion is heart of the paper, and it talks a lot about the basis, the right thing, the wrong thing. So if you have really understood that and impart, and you are willing to impart that to us, it will be really like great thing for us. And next thing I want to tell you is the journal club is not simply like talking for 1 hour and then the audience got nothing. They understood nothing. Okay, it shouldn't be like that. You talk less, you make us understand more. In this study. Okay, so this is not how it should be. So I hope you will be improving in the coming days on your journal club, on the way you see the literature. It's a very important skill. See, even the you doesn't matter where you grow, how much old. Okay, journal club is something a part of like continuing pharmacy education or continuing medical education that will be happening entire your life. The research is never ending. In each day something new is coming. Okay, and that will get to know from literature only, that will get to know from this kind of discussion only. So you have to learn these skills in a proper way. Okay, am I clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so shall we discuss? You can stop recording, Gayatri.
Yes, sir.
About today's class,